Hi, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Mariah.
And this is the Cassie and Mariah Show, a podcast where two long-distance internet friends, that's us, discuss navigating their 20s through disability and chronic illness. Mariah, how's your week been?
My week's been pretty normal. Very much a work week for me. I worked 2 days this week at the shop, and I also vended a market on Wednesday. And on Monday, I went to Glossier, a store, skincare and makeup store in New York with my friend. And, nice, busy week, I feel like I had.
That's so nice with the trip to start your week, though. I feel like that's so nice. And I know you were telling me about your subway adventures.
It was a trip. Oh my God. I don't go to the city often, for living so close, which is so unfortunate. But we went on a subway and we were able to go past a abandoned subway station and got to see the inside of it from the inside of the subway. And it was so mysterious. And I was just wow, I'm loving this in here, looking at all the old tile. And then we ended up going to a bar and hanging out with the bartender there. This was 1 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, so nobody was there. And it was incredible. And he bought us shots, which I thought was really funny. And then we took the shots, got coffee at this really good coffee place, got some cookies, and then went on our way home. And before, we went to the bar, we went to Glossier, of course, and I bought a whole bunch of skincare and makeup because that's what you do when you go there. And it's just a really nice, fun day.
And then, you took the train home, and then it was snowing. It's so perfect.
Getting off the train, and you see the snow coming down onto the platform. I was like, wow, winter wonderland. What a great day to wrap up a day in the Big Apple,
Main character moment.
Yes, of course. How was your week?
It was a pretty mixed bag. I mean, school at least gives me some sort of routine every week that makes things have somewhat of a normal flow. We finally have gotten out of the snowstorm that we had for a week there. I was able to get my hair cut, which was very nice. I joined a club at school from the comfort of my own home.
Yes.
So hopefully I make some friends. That's one of my goals for this year is to make college friends. I already went to college and have college friends, but I want PSU college friends.
Yes.
And then the last part of the week was a little rough in that a few West Coast states, including Oregon, announced that the mask requirements in healthcare settings will be lifted next month, which is horrifying and extremely upsetting. And then to top it off, on Saturday, Judy Heumann, a lifelong disability rights activist, passed away unexpectedly, age 75. And that was just hard because it's she's someone I didn't personally know, but has affected my life in so many ways. And so that was a lot to process.
Yeah, I was reading that on Twitter yesterday. I saw some of the people I follow sharing stories about her and, pictures. And it was, really rough to hear.
It's just so many mixed emotions because it's obviously sad that she's gone, but just so much gratitude. And yeah, we'll talk more about her a bit later in the episode, but yeah, just a bummer that she's gone, but really grateful for everything she did that, had such a positive impact on millions of people.
Yeah, just the legacy she leaves behind, glad that we had this time with her. So today's episode, we are here to discuss growing up on the internet, which to me feels like it's a very personal experience, but as Cassie and I has talked about before, we very much meshed into the same internet sphere of things, which is how we became friends. So I feel like I meet so many great people online and a lot of friends I've met through the internet. So I'm sure we have our own tales to tell and how we got started here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because I feel like people our age are kind of some of the first people to start making internet friends regularly. Yes. Because as kids, it's in school when we would learn about how to use the computer and how to make a safe email address. They'd be like, watch out, stranger danger. And then I'm like, 15, and I'm like, bye, going to meet my Twitter friends at the mall. Like, it became so normal so fast. And like now, obviously, like people of all ages make internet friends all the time. Although it's still funny though, I have a lot of intergenerational friendships. So some of my older friends are like, what's a Twitter mutual?
Yeah, like I totally agree where we felt like we were the first generation of kids to use the internet for social like purposes. A lot of the times is that you're online and, you would have teachers that have you just write papers on the computer and stuff. I remember when I was in high school, I think I was a freshman and I had a cell phone and I had an iPod. I would text my friends on the cell phone, but then I'd use the iPod to talk on like Twitter, Instagram, and making a Twitter account. I made my account was when the band Emily's Army at the time had a contest for their 1,000 Twitter follower, and that person was going to win like free stuff from them. And my mom told me about this because they posted it on their Instagram. So I made a Twitter, and I remember I sat at my family computer and I made a Twitter because this was even before I had my iPod. So I was using Twitter for desktop. And right from there, it was when this whole journey online started. And, talking to like my high school friends on Twitter, and then also meeting people that followed Emily's Army or, Green Day and all these other bands that I listened to is how I really started on social media.
That's so interesting. I had a somewhat similar experience in terms of like fandom being what like really got me on and kept me on. It's like I remember making like a Facebook account and whatever because it was like a thing for like, my mom was doing, my family members were doing. And so, I had done that, but it really wasn't until I got into One Direction that it was like, oh no, there's like a whole community online of people who are like, it's like a full-time job to be a Stan account. Except for this was before they were called Stan accounts. They were simply just fan accounts.
Yeah, like I just kind of was falling into people like that, meaning people that were fans of the same music. I never had a Facebook.
Love that for you.
I remember my friends playing Farmville and stuff and, being at their house and like watching YouTube videos. Like I remember going to my neighbor's house and watching like the Shoes video, watching Fred videos on YouTube and like all that fun stuff. Well, I feel like even the earliest form of social media for me was like Webkins and Club Penguin, like,
oh yeah,
of course, those like online games where you interact with people there and there are strangers on there. Like you have no idea who these people are that you're talking to. And yeah, like I never had a Facebook. The idea behind it was connecting with people and connecting with friends, and I don't really think my parents wanted me exposed to Facebook, so I made something worse and I made a Twitter account.
Yeah, that is true. Like, I guess Facebook, is definitely more targeted towards people you already know versus, like, especially Twitter, like, you just get immersed in a bunch of strangers, like, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
For me, I think that social media and fandom combined, like, were kind of one of my first, like, forms of community, because I feel like growing up, like, it's, like, obviously you have, like, school friends, you have your family, but, like, a lot of kids at school, like, their primary community was, like, church, and I ain't religious, so, like, I didn't have that, and, like, living in a rural area, it's, like, didn't have, like, a bunch of neighbor kids, like, I just didn't really have a sense of community, and so it's, like, literally I found that through being online, and I don't know, it was just so fun, especially, like, in the summers, I would be so bored, and, like, being a One Direction fan was just constant entertainment, because every little thing that they did, especially when they were active at the time, was just, every little thing was, like, the biggest deal in the world.
Oh my god, yeah, like, I mean, for community as well, for me, I feel like a lot of the friends that I made were through the sports that I did. I played field hockey in high school, I did cheerleading when I was younger, so I did develop a lot of friends there, and I had a few kids on my neighborhood that were the same age as me or are the same age as me, so we became friends that way. And I feel like I've just like, as much as I think of myself as an introvert, I think I'm very extroverted, but just don't think of it in that sense, because like I feel like I can just become friends with anybody. So I did have a decent amount of like in person, like acquaintances, friends through just like that type of stuff. And then when I was on Twitter, I did the same thing where I just became friends with a lot of people. And, you know, obviously, like, stranger danger, of course. Like, well, I wouldn't even have my name on Twitter for the longest time. You know, Cassie always says, like, she didn't know my name until we actually became friends. Because, like, my Twitter when I was in high school was not like, I'm not like other girls. Like, my profile picture wasn't me, and my Twitter name was something that was not my name. Like, I always ended up using some weird, like, inside joke. So a lot of kids, like, didn't know it was me unless, like, I told them that, Sassafras States is me on Twitter. And I always liked that, like, anonymous vibe of it, where I could connect with my friends online. I can connect with people I don't know, but, like, these people have nothing. Like, they know nothing about me. And a lot of the internet friends that I made, I would end up, like, exchanging phone numbers with them, and we would FaceTime, or a couple times I have met them in person. So I was like, okay, like, these are real people. Like, I'm not, telling my whole life story to someone who doesn't know who I am.
For sure, yeah. I feel like for me, where, like, the, like, true, like, friendships started to form was especially when I would find, like, other, like, One Direction, or, like, when 5 Seconds of Summer toured with One Direction, like, got into, like, that fandom as well. When I would find other fans who lived in my area, like, that to me was where I started to really form friendships, because I'm like, oh, these people are, like, near me. They're not just, like, I don't know, like, random people, like, if just whoever, but they're like, oh, like, we could, like, meet, or, like, if One Direction ever comes here, they never did, but they went to Seattle a few times, then we might be able to, like, meet at the concert or whatever. And I actually, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I actually used to run, like, the 5 Sauce to Oregon, like, Twitter account, and, like, we would have meetups, which is how I met, like, my best friend Courtney, like, for the first time in person, and Heather, like, all of, like, people who are, like, now, like, some of my, like, feel like lifelong friends to me, who I've been friends with for almost 10 years, I met because we were, like, trying to get, like, our favorite bands to, like, come here.
I love that. Oh my God. I don't think you told me that. That's amazing. Yeah, like, I feel like a lot of the bands that I liked at the time were very Warped Tour-ish bands, and, living so close to New York City, I was, the same way you're Seattle in a way. It's like you could just go there to see these shows. One Direction did come to MetLife with 5 Seconds of Summer. That tour I did, I was there. I went there. I was, like, I remember going, to a whole bunch of shows, just, like, with a few of my in-person friends, and meeting online friends there. Where I live in New Jersey, close to, like, Asbury Park, is that there's a lot of bigger venues there that we would go to, and, you'd meet friends there, or you would make friends at these shows and then, like, follow them on Twitter later. And, I would see some of them in person again at shows, or, like, hang out with them after school, but I felt like we really existed as online friends even after that. Like, because, we talked to each other on Twitter. We would talk to each other on Instagram. And that was, like, a primary way of communication. But I feel like it was just, I don't know. It's crazy to think about how back then it's like, these people that are online you're talking to, it's like, I feel like it was a lot easier to make friends back then than it is now.
That, but also, I think just in general, social media does help facilitate friendship and relationship making. I feel like the concept of, like, a parasocial relationship is something I have only heard within, like, the past year, but just kind of this way of defining, like, people you feel like because you, like, consume so much of their content online. And it's like, there's people I've been Twitter mutuals with forever who I've never necessarily regularly talked to, but it feels like Twitter mutuals are almost like their own form of friendship.
Yeah, where, you can reference something that they mentioned to them, from a while ago or whatever. And I feel like it's not weird to be like, oh, like, you tweeted about this a while ago. Like, how's that going? Or how's this going? And I definitely think the parasocial relationship is a very interesting dynamic, because it really kind of felt like that, like, some people that would follow me, people would follow me on Twitter, and I would always tweet weird things when I was younger. I just felt like it. Like, that's just weird. I'm just a weird kid, and people would, you know, ask me that stuff in person or like make a comment of what I said. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, fan behavior? Like, are you a fan of me on Twitter? Or like, I remember one time in school, a kid referenced how many followers I had in class. And it wasn't even like I had a lot. So I was like, I don't know why. Like, he was like, can you give me a shout out on your Instagram or on your Twitter?
Whoa.
And I was like, yeah, let me shout you out to a bunch of like Green Day fans. Like, they don't care. Like, they don't know who you are. Also, they don't care that you're someone that I go to school with. It's not like it's, you know, it's not like relates to anything. But yeah, I think that there was also like an app that I would talk to kids on that was like a spray can app where you would draw art. I don't think I've ever told you this. And we would draw like Green Day art, and then you would find people that would draw the same art as you, you know, that would compliment you, and then you would have a conversation with them. And then I remember like having a group chat with some of these kids and talking to them. And I always like to think about like, wonder where they are now, you know, like wonder what people like that are up to.
Is this the time where, on a similar note, and I don't know if the like drawing app you're talking about is remotely similar in the kind of weird anonymous kind of way, but Omegle was also Omegle. I don't know how you say it, but that was also like a weird prominent part of like middle school, high school, like literally just online you're randomly connected with a stranger. That's how I discovered One Direction. And actually I think it's like the person I connected with was like, this might be weird, but like I am a guy and I'm a fan of One Direction, which like of course like back then it's like people would make fun of boys for liking boy bands, which is ridiculous. But like I because before then I had no idea. It's like I was using social media in a casual way and I had no idea that there was, and so that's how I discovered that there was this whole other world out there.
Yeah, I used to use Omegle as well. I mean, because that's another thing too. When I was younger, I didn't have we had a family computer, but it was a really shitty like Dell desktop computer.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't have a webcam, so I never used stuff like that unless I was at a friend's house. And I remember like using Omegle and, you know, just talking to people on there, but then also it's like, I'm a baby. Like, I'm like 13. Like, this is a little uncomfortable,
we should...
you know?
We should not have been on there.
No, we shouldn't. We should go back to Club Penguin, you know?
We should have absolutely still been on Club Penguin, but I think it is just, like, interesting, too, kind of how, even now, not being on, like, fandom Twitter anymore, for example, like, there are still, like, there are just so many pockets of Twitter that, like, you find your community regardless of what it is that you're interested in or want to talk about. Like, that was just like one interest, but like obviously like there's whole sides of Twitter. There's academia Twitter, there's, you know, every possible subject you could ever be interested in. Sports Twitter, like I am now like living in the like transportation Twitter, which honestly is sometimes very annoying. And I'm trying to like switch it up a little bit, but it's like there's a little pocket for everything, and it's like that's how like I still like as like a 24-year-old am continuing to make internet friends. Like I have so many friends who I don't see very often, but I keep in touch with and have built a relationship with over Twitter, and they're people of all ages.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even nowadays I find, like, I still make internet friends now. And, you know, the cool part about, like, technology being so advanced is, like, you could play video games with them online, or you can just, like, text all the time and send audio messages too. It doesn't have to be just, like, communicating through Instagram. Or, you know, you follow each other on Instagram, you follow each other on Twitter, and you, like, are kind of like following each other on every platform, so you almost know what they're doing like all the time, which I love because I'm very nosy, so I always like to know what people are up to. Yeah, like nowadays I think I'm on like gamer Twitter, of course.
Oh, that's fun.
I follow a lot of like streamers or a lot of just people that play the same games as me. I like that. But you know, Twitter nowadays I think is like, I think when we were on Twitter, it was like the prime where you really could just like, you could tweet an indirect and your friends would see it.
Yes. Do people still know what indirects are? Or do they just know subtweets?
Because they're like, oh, who's this subtweet about? And it's like, No, like, it was funny just being able to, like, tweet your friend's name and, acting like, oh, I'm gonna, see you later, I'll do this, like, oh, what are you doing tonight?
My friend indirected me the other day, and I happened to see it. Like, my friend from One Direction Twitter happened to be, like, reference a memory from, like, 2014 when we would have the meetups, and I just happened to stumble across it. And then it's like, I did, like, a search of, like, my name and, like, people you followed. It's like, of course nobody does that anymore.
Well, I feel like a main thing, at least like my reasoning behind it, is because when we were in high school, at the end of the day, when you come home, and that's when everybody would be on Twitter. It's like, that's when you can tweet the indirects because people will see it. Or if you see your friend in class scrolling on Twitter and you'll tweet an indirect like, oh, get off your phone, type of thing. I think a lot of even like the in-person friendships that I've made with people really started on Twitter and like thrived the best on there, where we moved into an in-person friendship from that point. I guess because I also felt like I was a little bit like, in person, I felt like I was a little bit shy and I had like a hard time communicating, even just like friendship needs and stuff. But I felt like when on Twitter, it's like, oh, you can be a little bit more funny. You can be a little bit more like snarky and have like a different tone behind it because, you're connected to it, but it's like the person's reading it rather than hearing you say it, which I think is, pretty interesting to really think about. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, like, I think nowadays, like, I think between, like, how Twitter's whole algorithm has changed, how friends don't go on it as much anymore because of that same reason, or just seeing the consistent ads. That's what I hate. Like, I hate being bombarded with ads when I go on social media, so I find that, a lot of my friends don't go on Twitter anymore. And also because, like, you and I, we have different like work ethics, where I know most people work like full-time jobs, so they are not online as much as we are now. But I do feel like I don't know, I do feel like I'm regressing a little bit, like where I'm like, oh, I'll follow like everything that I'm interested in, I'll follow like this part. And I've been using Reddit a lot for that reason of like keeping up with the video games that I like, or keeping up with creators that I like. And like I'm on like the Glossier subreddit. I'm on the Stardew Valley one, where people just share stuff about the games and brands and just stuff that they like. And I like that type of more niche, smaller community. Because then you could find exactly what you're looking for, rather than like searching on Twitter for something that relates to Stardew Valley or, an interest like that.
Well, and that's a good point too, is it did in a way feel like the communities were a bit more contained back in the day. How old am I? Because yeah, it's like you would just be in your One Direction bubble and that was it. But I will say too, like, obviously like things must have broken my social bubble over time in a positive way, because I have learned so much from being on, like, I'm only as political as I am from being on social media.
I think that that's an interesting point, because I don't consume news from the TV or anything. I feel like, as pathetic as it is to say, most of the news I get is from Twitter. But I do think is because mostly it's firsthand accounts. It's not like someone else reporting this information. It's like you kind of find it from the source, which I think has really, like, I think that Twitter in the beginning was a very more like leftist leaning like group, because there's a lot of people who like, are not like who are unique and don't find themselves a lot in person, in their immediate world. So that's where they branch out to being online, is to like find more people like them. And I think that that's like what social media was really truly meant for. It was to find people like you that don't live around you.
Exactly. And that's, we haven't talked much about how, we became friends, but it's like, I was looking at our old tweets yesterday, so that's the other thing about social media is I use, there's several different services, that are free that just like let you make it so that way it automatically deletes your tweets over time. So, like, I'm pretty sure I have mine set for, like, 30 or 60 days or something. Frankly, because I just be tweeting into the void. I don't know. I don't need it all to exist any longer. But I can still see, like, your tweets, and it's like, wow, like, they go back to, like, 2018 at least. And it's just interesting because it did start out, like, we would just, like, casually reply to each other's tweets. And then I do remember, like, I feel like when I had, I don't know, there was, like, some time in my life where I feel like we were playing, like, iMessage games, like, which was, like, kind of a development, but we didn't stay in contact that way. It still, like, defaulted back to Twitter. Like, I still didn't know your name at that point. I had your contact as your Twitter username. When COVID happened and a lot of our social interaction in general as people moved online, that I feel like is obviously when we really connected, because being in high-risk situations during the pandemic and, like, having a lot of feelings about it, we were able to lean on each other.
Yeah, which I think that it really created such a, like an honest and, like, safe space for you and I, like, talking to one another. Like, because I, again, like, being COVID isolation, like, right in that time, it's like I had nobody to talk to about how I was feeling and how scared I was. And I feel like talking to, like, any of my friends really about this, I felt like it was something where I'm like, oh, it's a little bit, like, uncomfortable, because, like, some people had different opinions on, like, what should, be happening right now, what people should be doing right now. And it was scary, and I kind of didn't know where else to turn. And I remember Cassie made a tweet, and I was, I think, like, just, like, DM'd you and was like, hey, like, I hear you, and, if you need a space to talk, like, please message me. And then we've been texting each other every day since.
Literally. And that was May of 2020, and we haven't shut up since.
Oh,
and I mean, we still haven't met in person, but hopefully someday soon in some way it'll be safe enough, even if it means you take the train across the entire country, which I think would be kind of amazing anyway.
That would be incredible. And you know what I would totally like? I would do a solo podcast on my way there. Like a 24-hour solo podcast.
POV, it's just an audio message to me, because I would listen to it. Mariah discovered the other day that there's actually a 30-minute limit on
devastating. I recorded a 30-minute great audio message to send to Cassie. It had plot. It had, like, ups and downs. It had crazy stories, backstories, Mariah lore, and I couldn't even send it. It was 30 minutes and 12 seconds, and it was like, oh, this message is too long to send. And I was like, I couldn't save it and email it to you or anything. Like, there was no way I could send it, and I was devastated. I was heartbroken.
And you think you were devastated? I lost 30 minutes of Mariah content.
You were robbed. You were robbed of a day.
Oh, devastating. But I mean, like, yeah, it's like we regularly DM'd on Twitter for a while, and then eventually must have just exchanged numbers. And then obviously during the pandemic, I had I think it was my friend Courtney was using the Marco Polo app, and so we think that our, like, 20-minute audio messages are bad now, but we were sending, like, 40-minute plus videos like several times a day.
I would send you videos of me, like, cooking my breakfast and just, like, talking to you about whatever, and which is so funny because, like, during that time, because this was, like, end of 2020, beginning of 2021, what was I doing at the time that I had 40 minutes of, like, content to send you? Like, I don't think anything was happening. Like, we would do hauls. We would do mail hauls. We would just talk about the bills that we got in the mail. Just stuff like that.
I would read you my traumatizing Social Security letters.
Oh, my God.
I often feel like I compare my needs to, like, a sim. So, like, how they have, like, the social need, and, like, especially, so, like, for context, like, right now, like, I'm a bit more isolated than I had been, because it's, like, obviously, like, ever since, like, vaccines and stuff, it's like I've been comfortable doing a little bit more stuff in terms of like I had been taking like in-person classes and like seeing my friends in person a bit more with like masks on and stuff. But right now it's like my mom's recovering from a kidney transplant, and so I haven't been going anywhere at all so far in 2023 besides doctor's appointments. And so other than like texting my friends, FaceTiming my friends, it's like I am so desperate. Like, my social needs bar is so low all of the time, and I feel like I'm constantly trying to use social media to fill it, and oh my god, does it not work, but I keep trying anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I do relate to that in a way, because I find that, like, I have been seeing friends and going out, like I just said, I went to the city, and I try to do, like, things that I'm comfortable with, and obviously wear a mask, and to just, like, allow myself to have, like, have fun like this in, like, a controlled way, but I feel like, in this podcast, we like to talk about, our physical health, but also our mental health, and I've been struggling, low-key, a bit, and it's been rough, but so I find that I have been like staying home a bit more and have been like in my feels a bit more. And I think that's where these online friendships really thrive, is when you can kind of just pick up the phone and FaceTime somebody or talk to somebody online. And especially when it's a close friend that you feel like you can really get vulnerable with and have these, rough conversations with, but also these like honest conversations where it's almost like nice because you're like, oh, like this person like struggles with this as well and like has like advice to give, or even just have a safe space to share this with. And that's what I feel like with you. I'm like, oh, we can have these like really deep, vulnerable conversations, even though we've never met, haven't like, I never held your hand, like, like we like, and that's where I think it's these online friendships are very important. And it really just kind of helps this, like, yeah, like the social need or the isolation, it kind of like really just lifts you out of that a bit. And just adds a really like important, like interesting dynamic, to life, online friends.
Agreed. And like, I think I need to try to lean more on like my online friends. Not just like my online friends, but like being able to connect with friends online. Because I think, I don't know, filling it with like doom scrolling, mindless, like,
oh, it's so bad.
It's just like that's not obviously giving me the social like interactions that I want. But like it was interesting too, like with Judy Heumann passing away this weekend, because it was such a moment where I wished so badly that I could be in a room like full of just like in a pandemic free room with all of my like disabled and chronically ill friends from across the country, like this, magical imaginary situation that just will never happen. But it's like, Twitter in a way kind of acts as like a replacement for that, except for that it doesn't fully, because I'm like scrolling and I'm sad and I just want to like see other people talking about the same thing. And I guess I could just like search her name or whatever, but it's like, no, I want to see the other people I know talking about it or like sharing that with them. And it's like, instead it's like being interrupted by like, I don't know, music industry discourse.
Right. No, yeah, like I think that's the worst thing, is when you're in like a bit of a struggling mood, or you're in a lower place and you are trying to like almost use social media as like getting a dopamine hit in a way, and you want to find things that make you happy, or things that you're looking for, like you said, like looking for other people talking about her and other people discussing the like legend that she was. And yeah, then you see kind of stuff that like doesn't really matter, or at least doesn't matter to you directly in this moment. I think that that's where social media can almost be like, like, oh, well, what about my needs? But not even in a selfish way. Just like, what about what I'm thinking of and what I'm going through right now? And, I kind of felt like that like a few weeks ago when I like really wasn't feeling well mentally, and I'd go online and I'd see like video game discourse, and it was like, this stuff like doesn't matter. Like,
yes,
it's really like this stuff is like people, it's like that Simpsons meme of like the newspaper and it says old man yells at cloud. Like, that's what Twitter is in a nutshell. Like, we're just all yelling into the void.
You know, an interesting thing, though, with, like, being disabled and spending a lot of time online, both because that's where we can find other people, like, with shared experiences, and also just because we have non-traditional schedules that unfortunately leave us with too much time to spend online sometimes, is the whole, like, gross, like, negative attributes that people assign, like, chronically online, or you need to go touch grass, and it's like, I mean, there are so many people who genuinely, like, they, like, their work is online, their, like, community is online, there are people who genuinely, that is the place that they, like, get social interaction, and, like, we were just talking about, it's like, that is where, like, sometimes we need to exist, like, that is, like, where we find community, and I think it's just, like, I don't know, those terms are just, like, so weird and gross and ableist to me.
I feel like they're also so, like, you know, sometimes it's like, okay, like, I understand if it's, like we were saying about, like, talk about, like, video game discourse or music industry discourse, where, like, this doesn't really matter in real life. Like, maybe, you know, if this is really affecting you, like, maybe just do, you know, turn off your phone and just go do something else. Like, go read a book, like, you know, something like that. But I do think sometimes it's, like, I know people mean well, but I also think that it's, like, sometimes things just bother people, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to minimize their feelings and be like, oh, that, you know, that's stupid, why do you care so much? It's like, well, because that's, like, the online space that I'm constantly in, or, you know, this is what I'm reading, and, you know, like, a lot of the stuff that you read online can be triggering in person, and can be, like, impacts you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, or makes you feel like these people don't, like, care about something on the same level as you do, which, like, you know, everybody's gonna have a different feeling, reaction towards, like, reading stuff that makes them upset, or, like, you know, reading, like, I guess you would say, like, hot takes, you know, like, where people be like, oh, here's a take on whatever, and oh, if you're upset, like, go touch grass. It's like, no, like, sometimes what you say, like, even online, even though it's not face to face, can still be mean and hurtful, and that's what people are upset at. They're not upset at, like, you know, oh, because I'm online so much, it's just, like, you're going to be bothered by everything. Like, no, it's, like, sometimes you're just being mean, like, and that's what it is.
Well, and a lot of times, it's people using these terms against people who are, like, calling out discrimination. And especially ableism. Like, nobody takes ableism online seriously, and it's so upsetting and frustrating. Sometimes because it's called out in weird situations, and so then people are, which, of course, those are the only times that people talk about it on a viral scale. Like, and so then they're just like, oh my gosh, you people are online too much. Like, you think everything's, like, discrimination, like, go touch grass. And it's like, how about you, like, listen to other people for once?
And, like, I think, too, it's, like, you know, I feel like there's always a bigger picture as well. Like, you know, a viral tweet, like you're saying, like, you know, oh, someone says a thing like this, but then, like, you could take a step back and just, like, some people just offer a different perspective. Yes. And I think that's just really important to, like, take that in and realize, like, okay, that's, like, completely valid for them to feel this way, or for them to think like that.
And that it doesn't mean it's representative of everybody else.
And, like, it doesn't mean that it has to be like, oh, someone's correcting you and now you're mad at them, and now, you know, you feel like this be like, oh, you know what, you should just get off your phone, like, go do something else, like, why are you even doing this? And, like, I think, too, is, like, Twitter nowadays, their algorithm will show you things that you're interested in. Like, I would tweet about, like, the TV shows that I watch, and then, like, those because I mentioned the name of the show in the tweet, it'll show up on another person's timeline that doesn't follow me, who, like, they don't know who I am. If it's a wrong take on the show, or if it's a wrong fact, like, they'll correct me. Like, sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, because some people do be, like, sending all their fans or their friends to, like, attack you. Like, there was a while ago where I tweeted about the show Supernatural, and I had, like, one of the actors, like, full names in the tweet. So I would only imagine the people that interact with that actor often on Twitter, like, that tweet would show up on their timelines. And I had all the fans of the show coming after me for this tweet. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is very overwhelming. And I was like, you know, as much as it's annoying, it's like, okay, like, I understand, like, the way something that I tweeted, like, out of context people can come and correct you, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, it can be annoying, it can be a little frustrating, but also, like, these people don't know the context, they don't know what what you said before this or after this. I just think people should be nice.
I do too, especially because I feel like social media is not necessarily well designed for thoughtful conversations and, like, nuanced conversations, and people take everything very surface level, no context, they don't know the other person that well. There's just, like, so much missing a lot of the time, and it's like, I think social media is really good at being a place to start conversations, but a lot of times they need to move elsewhere to, like, be more productive. I don't know, like, it obviously depends the content, like, because it can range from anything, from TV shows to, like, actual, like, real world shit. So, something else that I was thinking about from when you were talking earlier about people referencing your tweets in person is sometimes I, especially in the past, I have tweeted so many things, like, about what's going on in my life that then when I see my friends in person, they're like, oh yeah, I already saw that on Twitter. And I'm like, can you just pretend? Or, like, I want to have a conversation here. But apparently I just, ruin things for myself by tweeting about everything, so then everyone already knows every thought I've ever had.
I do that too, and it's hilarious when I tweet about something, and then later on in the day I talk to a friend and I mention that, and then it's like, oh, like, I already know they saw this on Twitter, and then I get uncomfortable because I'm like, I feel like it's like I need to save more of these, like, special intimate moments to, like, tell somebody rather than posting about it on Twitter first, where it's like, I'm not telling someone directly, it's just out in the open, so anybody will see it, anyone will interact with it. But sometimes I feel like there's things that need to be saved for, like, in-person conversations. A lot nicer to share that in person with them, or it could be over the phone with them, like you, like texting you. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, I tweet something and then I will text you it. And then I'm like, well, Cassie already saw it on Twitter.
That's so true. Yeah, because it's even stuff like, I'm currently applying for, like, internships and stuff. And it's like, whenever I hopefully land one for this summer, it's like I could easily just be like, oh my god, I got an internship with, blah, blah. And it's like, you do have to be a bit more intentional about creating those special moments and not just blasting everything all the time, which I think growing up on the internet, I have a hard time not just sharing my every thought, because I am such an open book, because, like, literally on One Direction Twitter, you would get put in what we would call Twitter jail, because you would tweet so many times in, like, a certain amount of time that they were like, you need to chill. And that doesn't happen to me anymore, but I am still just, it's so ingrained in me, the habit of just sharing anything and everything. And in fact, to the point where I actually, I have friends who are, like, not as active on social media anymore, or, like, intentionally not using it. And so I'll forget to tell them things. Or, like, I need to let them know, like, oh, hey, this is going on in the world. You should know.
I agree. Like, sometimes I'll tweet something and then I realize a lot of the friends that I know would care about that, or I know would want to talk to me about that, I will tweet it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not telling this person, so they don't know what's happening, or they don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And I do that a lot, and that's rough. And the Twitter jail thing, I think, is really funny, because I remember that I used to be put in Twitter jail all the time when I would, like, live tweet shows.
Oh.
And oh my god, it was always so bad, because you're like, I want to be tweeting, I have so much to say, but I'm in Twitter jail.
I think, too, sometimes, especially for my longer term friendships, where it doesn't matter how long we go without talking, because our friendship is, like, so solid and steady that whenever we talk again, it's, like, fine and normal. I think I especially rely on Twitter in that way, or, like, social media in general, as, like, oh, I expect them to see the update. And it's like, I don't love that habit. I think that when I take breaks from Twitter, I'm so much better about, like, actually maintaining communication with my friends, which is an interesting issue to have. And I think, I don't know, my relationship with social media and just, like, being online is something that I'm constantly working to improve and find balance with, because it's hard, because, like I said, I'm using it to, like, fill my social need in this time when I'm not with a bunch of people, and but at the same time, there can be a lot of negative sides of it when I spend too much time on it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point of, like, almost like having these friends where like you can go a long time without talking to one-on-one, and then you like pick up where you left off. Because I feel like that a lot in my friendships where, you know, a lot of my friends and I like haven't talked to each other, you know, when we were in college and stuff, like we didn't keep in touch as much. And then after that, you kind of only saw them on Instagram, Twitter, stuff like that. And then, but once you start talking to them again, you're like, oh, like we still have a lot of stuff in common. Like we're still friends. Like it's not like you really have to second guess yourself in any way. I do think that I have a bad problem with like relying on social media for like my happiness and for the attention. I think that I'm dealing with this like outside validation seeking problem where I like base my worth on like how many likes I get on a tweet or how many likes I get on a post, which I know sounds so pathetic and so sad. But like, I think also just like we were saying, like growing up online, you're almost like you search for that. Like that's like a coping mechanism, is being able to, tweet something that you think is hilarious, you think is so funny, and then when it gets a good amount of likes, you're like, wow, I'm like validated, like I feel better. And then, you know, nothing's worse than like tweeting like a weird take and then like getting no likes. Then you have to like, you know, hide your tail between your legs and delete the tweet, like
delete it.
It's so like, which like, it's so funny because you and I relate. We're Gen Z. We're 25. We get it. But like telling this to an older person, they're like, "You need to go touch grass." You know, they're gonna tell me to touch grass now because of saying that likes on a tweet equals like my self-confidence.
One thing about me is I am the queen of tweeting and deleting. The other day, I was ranting about COVID and people were replying and I was upset and I just deleted all my tweets because I said, nope, I actually don't want to deal with any of those thoughts and feelings and don't want to talk about it. But so I just pretended it never happened.
Yeah. Pretending it never happened.
Even though clearly, because so many people liked and retweeted and replied, I'm like, yeah, this actually didn't happen. I actually haven't tweeted today.
I like had enough, you know, like I do that a lot. And, you know, that's like the great thing about having Twitter Circle is like sometimes you can post those tweets on there where the important people that agree with you, you know, it's like your echo chamber, like that people understand, you know, those people understand. But like otherwise people are like, what are you talking about? Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Overall, I don't know. I think the positives of like growing up on the internet have just like really outweighed anything for me. It's like I have disabled friends across the country because of the internet. Like so much of what I've done in my life has happened the way it has because of social media. I wouldn't know you without social media, which I frankly could not handle, so.
I feel like it's so true. We would have never met, because obviously how would have we met, like, if we didn't have social media? I do think nowadays it's a lot harder for younger people to find friends online, I believe. I mean, I'm not a young person, I don't know, but like, I do think that it's not like things like Twitter aren't utilized that much by younger people most of the time. So I'm just glad that we kind of got in during like the boom of it, you know, before like the algorithm really like messed with how you see tweets or how you see posts. It's like that was really like the prime internet days. And I'm glad that like, of course, we became friends. And I met all my internet friends online and how I like still like to talk to them now and interact with them now. And it's kind of like, it's like a special little group of people that I hold so dear to my heart, along with my in-person friends. So at the end of each episode, we're going to have a segment. And the segments are going to change, you know, based on what we're feeling, what we're doing right now. This segment, we're going to discuss what we're grateful for right now. I'm sure we'll come up with a name for it, but for right now, Cassie, what's something that you're grateful for?
I think for me right now, something that I'm like feeling especially grateful for is just like opportunities and possibilities. I think for a while I was feeling kind of lost with like what I'm doing with my life and where my future is headed. I had been thinking for a large part of last year that I would be running for office in 2024, and then the midterm elections went poorly in my county, and so I decided that that's not my plan anymore, and it was kind of the first time in a long time that I didn't really know what my future had in store. Like, I felt like I wasn't on a specific path. But more recently, I feel like I'm kind of like settling into the path that I'm on in terms of like school and like what I'm studying and the types of jobs that I hope to get. And I've been able to work on some cool local projects that are kind of like along the lines of what I want to do with my life, in terms of like combining like public service and like accessibility, disability, transportation, like so many things that I care so much about. And I think that kind of ties back to just like my gratitude for Judy Human, and like the fact that it's just like everything that I do today is only possible because of the work of disabled people who came before me, and especially Judy. It's like last night I was thinking about how it's just like, you know, I wouldn't be talking to people about how to make Portland's adaptive bike share program like more accessible and like, you know, more inclusive if we didn't have the ADA to point to. It literally wouldn't exist. And I'm just so grateful to be able to work on things that I care so much about and be applying for internships that would be a dream to get, and just to be kind of like settling into the place that I'm at in life. And, you know, the past few months have been kind of hard because I've been isolated and just, I don't know, it's just been an interesting time in my life. And so I'm also really grateful for like my friends who are able to like see my self-doubt sometimes before I even see it and like reassure me and cheer me on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're always on the right path, you know? You are going in one direction. Boo!
On that note, what about you, Mariah? What's something you're grateful for?
I'm feeling grateful for the slower days that I can kind of take a seat and focus on my health, or just on like pulling myself together. You know, I really appreciate the times where I can, you know, play my video games I like to play, or read, or just talk to friends. I feel like I was kind of like, my life kind of felt like a snowball going down a hill that was just getting bigger and bigger, like these problems that kind of like this like nonstop, you know, avalanche coming. And I realize that not everything needs to be rushed, and that I don't have to, especially when I'm not feeling well, I don't have to be rushing myself. Tomorrow, I'm like looking forward to just doing the things I need to do, working on more jewelry. That's another thing, is that like I'm really glad that I have gotten to this space where I can like book the markets that I need to book, or that I want to book, and I feel inspired to be there and to be part of these events. And then also having the ability to say no to ones that I don't want to do, or just ones that I'm like, you know what, this is too much. I'm putting too much on my plate right now. So it's okay if I don't want to do this, or if I only want to do 2 a month, 3 a month, anything like that. I kind of felt like last year I was doing a lot of markets and I was this like nonstop machine, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I think that it's kind of all catching up to me now. I'm trying to like get over this like burnout, you know, feeling that I'm in. I also think like organizing and like figuring out my priorities and what needs to be taken care of first has also helped a lot with that like slowing down feeling of, you know, I love having a planner, and I love being able to write down what needs to get done each day. And I'm a very to-do list person, so I make a to-do list for the month, I make a to-do list for the week, and then one for the day. So it's kind of like making sure, like, you know, and eventually all those things get done because I space them out enough where I'm not doing all these heavy, big tasks in one week. I get to spread them out. And I do like to just spend time outside, whether it's just playing with my dog in the yard. Like, I'm very grateful for those like slower moments where I get to just kind of like step out of my house a little bit. Hoping the weather warms up a little bit soon so I can go for walks outside and have a coughing fit at the park and people stare at me and I feel uncomfortable. Oh, no. But I also went to an expo yesterday where I got a lot of new jewelry supplies, which I'm so in love with, and I feel so inspired to make more jewelry and more bracelets and stuff like that. So I'm definitely grateful for that creativity inspiration, you know?
I love that. I love that you're able to slow down and take care of yourself and just like meet yourself where you're at.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode. So be sure to follow the Cassie and Mariah Show wherever you listen to podcasts, at TCMS Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and look out for new episodes every Wednesday. Bye!